What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to some huge breaking news. Apparently, the U.S. Supreme Court just ruled that Trump's tariffs are illegal. They're against the law. You can't do that. Can you actually believe it? Is this real life? And our Supreme Court is actually majority conservative. So some of them had to actually directly go against Trump's wishes on all this. So, oh my God, I bet he is so mad right now. I can only imagine. But, this is a big win for Americans, for one thing, because we have been suffering economically because of a lot of these economic policies. And of course, this is a huge win for all the countries out there that have been the targets of these Trump tariffs. And so today, I want to take a look at this CNN update and learn more about what exactly is going on. So let's take a look.
This is one of the most significant cases that the justices have decided in recent years. Here, the Supreme
Yeah.
Court ruling that President Trump's use of these emergency tariffs that he has implemented are illegal. It's the most significant economic case to reach the high court.
Soak it in. It's, man, I mean, obviously, this is good, like, economically speaking. It sets a good precedent that Donald Trump can't just do whatever he wants, no matter what the consequences are, that the sort of the will of the people, like, still matter. And yeah, and it's also just fun to make him mad. And he doesn't get what he wants in this case, especially in a case where it was hurting, the United States and hurting a lot of other countries. And nobody, oh my God, Trump's approval ratings are so bad right now. He should be thanking the Supreme Court for striking this down and ending the suffering. Because I don't know, it's desperately what so many Americans wanted, and so many people around the world wanted and are waiting for. And we weren't sure if it was going to happen because this Supreme Court ruling thing has been going on for a while now, and it happened. It actually happened.
In years, sweeping implications for the economy and, of course, for presidential power. And at stake here are billions of dollars in revenue that have already been collected by the government. Pamela Wolf.
Oh my God. That is right. So this has been going on for a while now. The tariffs and the collection of all this revenue from all the businesses and the imports and oh my God, if these are illegal, and specifically the means in which Trump enacted these tariffs are illegal. The legal foundation that he used to activate these global emergency tariffs, that is against the law. That's what they determined specifically. If that's the case, and this has all been illegal the entire time, that means all the money that's been collected retroactively may have to go back to where it belongs, to the companies that paid it. And anybody who wants a refund, really. Is that a thing? That's a thing. Oh my God, because for months, Trump has just been bragging nonstop about all the revenue that the United States government is generating and all the money we're getting from tariffs. And now even that is a huge fail. It's all going to have to go back, right?
The other significance here is that this is the first time that the 6-3 conservative court has ruled against President Trump in one of these major cases that have gone before the court since he returned to power.
God. Oh my God, it just never ends. It keeps going. Oh my God. Yes, the Supreme Court is majority conservative. So there was some expectation they might just go along with Donald Trump, who's conservative, and just no. Wow, 6-3 voted against tariffs. Wow.
In January. Now, we are still going through this case, but this is something we have been waiting for. The court said that it would take up this case on an expedited basis. So they're deciding, even though it's a significant case now, because of course this has enormous implications. So as we go through this opinion now with our team, another outstanding question is what now happens to all that revenue that had been collected? This is something
that is a huge question. I hope somebody can answer that question. Because from what I understand, if this has been against the law the entire time, the foundation of this whole thing has been against the law, like, that would mean people can either sue the government to try to get the money back, or simply they will be mandated to return all the money.
It really wasn't clear from the arguments what they would say about that, if they're going to lay out a plan. So we will continue to go through this, but this is an enormous decision and a rare loss for President Trump.
It is a mammoth loss for Donald Trump. Huge loss. I can't even imagine what he's doing right now, or how he is going to respond. Now, frankly speaking, this is like a great precedent and a good ruling, but this is only striking down tariffs based on this one circumstance, this one specific thing that he was using this law to make his tariffs legal. There are other ways for Donald Trump to use our government to legally enact tariffs in other ways. It is more difficult, which is good, and more fair probably. This was the big one, though, that just this ruling, this law that he was using had allowed him to place like global tariffs on so many countries all at once, sweeping tariffs, huge, with such monumental consequences, which, you know, who knows if the United States will ever really recover from all of this madness, but this is certainly a good start
for this conservative court.
This is, Paula, a major slap at the President of the United States, who has made a major effort over these many, many months to impose all of these tariffs.
Yes.
And just to look at some of the background I have here, over these many months, the administration has collected $150 billion in these tariffs. So what happens to that money? Do they have to refund that money to the firms, to the people who paid for those tariffs?
That's one of the big questions that came up at arguments, and it's something that we're looking through now in this opinion. The top line is that these are illegal, that the president cannot rely on this 1977 emergency law to impose tariffs.
How stupid was that, by the way? Relying on some 1970s law it's so ridiculously stupid, because he probably was advised that, you know, we're not sure if this is a sound legal basis to do these tariffs, Donald. This might get overturned. It might get brought to court and overturned. I don't know if you should. I'm sure somebody, well, you know, these days, given like Trump's administration, who knows what kind of advice he's actually being given. But you have to think, as the President of the United States, he should understand that using this 1970s law as the basis of all these tariffs, knowing that they could get overturned, knowing that this might all be a farce and illegal, but he did it anyway. Just because he wanted tariffs in that way. So he just didn't care. It was such gross display of negligence, and now it's all coming home to roost. Right? Like, it's happened. This is why you don't do something like that. Now it's all, the house of cards is all falling down. And now what are we going to do? Like, it's a good thing. For a while, Trump was promising he was going to take the tariff revenue and give it out to, like, people like me, like normal American citizens, like just hand out money, tariff dividends or something. It's a good thing we didn't do that, because this money does not rightfully belong to the United States government.
without authorization from Congress, because this question is really about the extent of presidential power. And we know in both his terms in office, President Trump has really worked at the edges of what has largely been recognized as executive authority.
Yeah.
But in these arguments back in November, they went on for 2.5 hours. It was clear that the justices were skeptical that President Trump could rely on this vague federal law to impose global tariffs.
So the Supreme Court justices made it clear to Donald Trump they were skeptical that this would be upheld when he first did it, or at least when they started asking questions about it. So bad. So bad. What a betrayal of like the American people and people around the world doing this in the first place.
Now, they did appear to likely be willing to decide that these were illegal, but what is not clear, and we haven't gotten to this part of the opinion, is what happens to all that revenue that has been collected by the government. And President Trump has said himself that this is, this is a massive decision for him. So we're waiting for reaction, both from the Justice Department.
Oh my God. The reaction from Donald Trump will be that the Supreme Court is corrupt. They are actively biased against him, which doesn't make any sense. That's the funny thing. Our Supreme Court is majority conservative, Republican, like Donald Trump. And they still voted against it. That's how you know they sincerely believed that he was misusing this law. And he will still say this is a mutiny, this is a betrayal, this is, oh my God, that it is the government's working against him, conspiracy against him. And it's like, no, this is just how the government should work. Like this is such a great outcome, and it is such a relief to see this kind of stuff happening in real time. Such a relief.
That argued this on his behalf, and also from the White House. But we're going to keep going through this, Wolf, to try to see if the justices laid out any plan for what happens to that revenue.
All right, Paula, stand by. I know you're going to be reading all these the opinions and everything. I want to get back to you, but I want to bring in our senior legal analyst, Ellie Honig, right now. Ellie, as I said, this is a huge setback for the President of the United States, and this has been a traditionally conservative Supreme Court, but they ruled that all of these tariffs that Trump has imposed over these many months are illegal. It's a big deal.
Illegal.
Well, Wolf, it's a monumental ruling, and the bottom...
Huge. This was going to be part of Trump's legacy, and it is ruined. Like, I actually can't wait to see what he has to say about this himself.
Bottom line is that the tariffs Donald Trump announced back in April on Liberation Day are gone. They have been ruled illegal by this U.S. Supreme Court. An interesting array of justices here. In the majority, ruling that the tariffs are illegal is Chief Justice Roberts, Justice Gorsuch, and Justice Amy Coney Barrett, three conservatives who teamed up with the three liberal justices.
Three conservative judges sort of defected because, let's be honest, you know that Donald Trump called them up personally and was like, you know which way you need to vote on this. You know, for your own good. You know. So this is so amazing. Hats off to those judges who just did what they think was sincerely the right decision.
This is Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson to rule these tariffs unconstitutional. The dissenters are Justices Thomas, Alito, and Kavanaugh. And the basis for the ruling is this. Congress, not the president, Congress typically holds the tariff power. Now, Congress passed this law back in 1977 called the International Economic Emergencies Act. And Donald Trump tried to use that law to say, well, I'm declaring an international economic emergency, therefore I'm imposing tariffs. But the majority...
I didn't actually totally understand that was the legal basis that he used for this. What are you talking about? We were not in an economic emergency. Now we are, because everything has gone down the garbage. Now we are, but what? When he did this, like 8 months ago or whatever it was, like almost a year ago now? When he did this, we were not facing some kind of economic emergency at that time. Things were actually decent. And he used that as the basis to do the emergency tariffs, the Liberation Day. Yeah, where we were liberated of our money. Oh my God. Yeah, I remember the market went down so much that day.
Here said, no, that law does not authorize you to impose tariffs, and no, there is not a valid international economic emergency here. So
Exactly. There's not a valid international emergency going on. Anybody, I think, could have told you that. What? Oh my God. I wish I'd understand that a little bit better at the time. But yeah, sounds like they got it right. And it sounds like Trump willingly used this law, I feel like kind of knowing it was completely bogus.
the end result, and we are still going through this, but the end result is that Donald Trump's tariffs have been struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. But really important point I want to make, Donald Trump has said, various White House officials have said, if he loses on this basis, he will try to re-implement other tariffs through other laws, which he can try to do. However, those other laws are much more restrictive. They would not allow him to apply the type of sweeping, massive, across the globe tariffs that he tried to impose here.
I mean, as an American citizen, I would say this is absolutely how it should be. The president shouldn't be able to do this kind of crazy stuff. Like, and I think no past president has been stupid enough to even try it, or unhinged enough to do it. And Donald Trump was the first one to push it this far. And thankfully, the pendulum has swung back and said, no, you can't do that, which is a big win, you know, for America's government, really, kind of validating that we do have these systems of checks and balances. And in this case, it finally worked.
But have now been struck down. Look, Donald Trump said these tariffs are the single most important thing he has done in his presidency. He said that, and now they've been struck down by the court.
Oh my God. Amazing. So he will try to find out a different way. That's how you know it's such a slimy, ingenuine, I don't know. Maybe he thinks this is all like good for the U.S., but the manner in which he's going about it, using these random laws, trying to force through these policies, this is, like they said, this is normally something that Congress has to approve. The U.S. government, lots of representatives have to vote on this. Not just Donald Trump, who is somehow able to do it in one day alone, just his idea. Thank God this happened.
So you're right. The administration has made clear that if the court strikes this down, that they'll look at other tariff authorities to use. But bottom line here, Ellie, how big of a mess does this ruling create, given the fact that the administration says it has already received $150 billion in revenue,
oh my God,
paid for by American businesses? Do they get a refund? What happens now?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's hard to think of a case that has broader implications politically and legally and economically than this one. I know a lot of people are watching for this one. We don't yet have the answer. This was a question that came up during the oral argument. Amy Coney Barrett, in particular, asked the lawyers, well, what do we do with the $100+ billion that have already been paid by American importers?
Oh my God. And just thinking about like the pain that has already been done. That's the travesty here, is that so much pain has already been done. And now finally it's been cut off at the head. But so many American businesses that have been paying all these tariff fees for no reason. They've been giving up money and therefore having to raise their prices, hurting me, the consumer. You know, lowering, people have lost their jobs over this. People's businesses have gone out of business over this tariff stuff. American consumers are paying higher than ever prices on things because of these policies. Thank God it's finally over. Who knows if it will go back to normal and what Trump will attempt to do from here, but the fact that this was allowed to go on for months.
American manufacturers. We're going to look carefully at this. I know Paul is reading this very carefully, but that's a huge question. Will there be some sort of mass refund program? Will the court rule that the tariffs are dead from here on out, but there are no repayments? We will let you know as soon as we get an answer.
Oh boy, they don't know.
All right, as you noted, Paul.
They don't know. They don't know what's going to happen with all that money.
Has been reading through the opinion. I want to go back to Paula Reed because we know that 3 conservatives sided with the liberals on the court, and you have a quote from one of those conservatives, right, Paula?
That's right. Well, this is Chief Justice John Roberts, who wrote the majority opinion where the court agreed 6-3 that President Trump's tariffs exceed his power under the law. He wrote, quote, "The president asserts the extraordinary power to unilaterally impose tariffs of unlimited amount, duration, and scope."
Seems pretty absurd when you hear it like that.
In light of the breadth, history, and constitutional context of that asserted authority, he must identify clear congressional authorization to exercise it. And we knew that the Chief Justice would be a key vote after what we saw at arguments. Now, we are still going through this. I want to show you, this is about a third of the opinion. It's 170 pages.
Oh my God. It is a miracle with all this legal mumbo jumbo, let alone all the politics, that this actually happened. Like, this is so profound. Like, the implications of this ruling. Oh my God, this is like just the beginning. Oh my God.
Just long. This is just a fraction of it.
Wow.
So we're going through it very carefully to try to understand what, if anything, the court said about what happens to all that revenue the government has already collected. I know that's a big question right now. We are carefully going through this to see if they laid out a plan, if this goes back to the lower courts. That's what we're working to figure out right now.
And a quick question from me, Paula. Do the tariffs immediately go away as of right now, or does it take a few days or at least maybe a few weeks for them to be removed?
Yeah.
Well, they've been declared by the Supreme Court to be illegal. So we're going through to see if they laid out some sort of plan. But as of right now, people should not have to pay a tariff today.
Oh my God. What if you're that last guy, like, who didn't hear about this, and you just paid the U.S. government, like, for your salmon import, or well, you might get it back anyway. But so it sounds like this is going to be pretty, like, overarching and immediate. These tariffs are illegal, have been illegal. They got to figure out what's going to happen with all this money.
Or tomorrow, one would think. But we're looking to see, because the logistics of this are so complicated, to see if the justices waded into that, or if all of that is going to be something that's now going to be tossed down to lower courts, now that the justices have ruled on the larger constitutional question here, the separation sort of powers and who has the authority to do this, right? Because while this has enormous economic implications, really this was a question about the extent of executive power. We know President Trump really plays at the edges of that. And again, this is a rare loss for President Trump since he has returned to office before this conservative court. So we're going to keep waiting through what they said to work out.
Well, this is a good outcome. It's still like a major, major fail on the U.S. and the U.S. government that it was able to happen and that this was able to go on for so long. But this is good. This is a good result. I'm very interested in the ruling on where the money's going to go and what Donald Trump, how the only wild card now is Donald Trump. What is he going to do now? How is he going to respond? This is literally, we're taking away like something he's extremely prideful in, very proud of, loves the tariffs, will view this as an attack on him and the government. How will he respond? That is the biggest question probably, besides where will the refunds or the money go. But, besides that, on its face, this is amazing. Huge news. Huge win. Oh my God. So this was good. Anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of this stuff. And if you're interested in more videos like this, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.